What are you working on?
G'day, I'm Dave Brown, and this YouTube series is a companion to our 7well.org podcast called In the Process of Making, a 14-episode odyssey, 5 years in the making, which takes us to the heart of what it looks and feels like to make something from nothing, what it takes from go to woe. So why is this of use to anyone? Well, if you're a maker, a creator, an artist of any kind, you'll know that the process of making something from nothing is an uncertain journey of diminishing returns, and it can be pretty lonely and tough. But it can also be compelling and profoundly human and deeply rewarding. And what our 7well project does is offer connection and support and scaffolding for anyone who knows what it's like to be under the spell of a creative endeavour, whatever that might be. So as part of all of that, we're going to get a glimpse into how other people go about doing their work. A 7-minute edit of a conversation which begins with a simple question.
What are you working on?
Today, we speak with Alan Todd. So Alan, what are you working on?
So about 4 years ago when my father died, he reached almost a century, and I would think the number of conversations we had over 5 decades would amount to probably about 2 hours. So the title I gave to all the works I've done since then are Conversations with My Father, all the ones that never happened.
What do you put that down to?
Being two completely different people, different backgrounds. He grew up in the Depression. And learning to make do was one thing, learning not to put yourself out there was another. He was a humble man and introverted, and we just really didn't connect right from the beginning. I went off as a teenager looking at philosophy and an art school and all that sort of stuff. He left school at 14, went into an apprenticeship, so we really had not much in common.
Where did your interests come from?
I honestly don't know. I was out there as a musician working local venues. You know, all of that was completely foreign to him. I don't know. I just went my own path, and that's what I've done ever since.
So how do you describe yourself?
If anybody asks me what I do in art, I say multimedia, because it takes away any notion of one particular medium or idea. It can be just about anything.
The volume of the work that you do is astounding. What sort of time do you spend doing your work?
Well, I could say 7 days a week. It wouldn't be a lie. I start at 5 in the morning, and I basically stop about 2:30 when I've had enough. So the piece you're about to bring up, though, is really quite specific. My mother died in the late 80s. A combination of depression, dementia, whatever, and one Christmas Eve, she was actually in a facility, and for whatever reason she got up and walked out in a nightdress and froze to death in the landscape outside. You know, a tragic end. But she spent her entire married life waiting for my father to come home. She never worked, she had no friends, she just sat there and knitted all day long. One of these two pieces is in some ways related to that. I couldn't manage to carve knitting, but I could cat's cradle. So maybe you can see the hands there, but they are carved as hands, and there will be a cat's cradle string across them. This piece will be called To the Lake. I wasn't there when she died. I wasn't there when they scattered her ashes around an artificial lake in the town in which she lived. So To the Lake is a place she liked to go. She really didn't have much of a life at all. Again, that's a conversation my father and I never had. These two sculptures are the end of a series. Initially, there were about 100 paintings. That was followed by a lot of small sculpture, a lot of drawing-type collage stuff. All of it was under the same heading, things that I never spoke to my father about, considering that he was a master technician. He was what was called a tool maker. The company he worked for produced toys, essentially. But these were die-cast toys, so he had to make the original die tools to be able to make them. He made the originals for a whole load of things, including James Bond's gun from Goldfinger, All of the old Western guns, the six-shooters, the rifles, he made the originals of all of those. And there's a couple of six guns, and you've got a carved bison head on the butt, and then you've got a stagecoach and six horses down the barrel. Well, he engraved all of those out of resin before they were cast into something else. So, he was very clever at what he did. Unfortunately, he never actually involved me in any of it.
So is he, in effect, like you in that respect?
More than likely. I'm probably a bit more open than he was. I think, the apprentices on the factory floor said if he ever smiled, his face would fall in half. That was just him.
So does this reflect something in you that's unresolved?
Yeah, I guess there's a degree of guilt. I packed up and left the UK in 1971 and never went back. And I know that was a source of anguish for both of my parents, but I could see nothing in England that was going to help.
Are you a driven sort of person?
You could say, yes, driven to create in any form or any medium, whatever came along.
And so do you think that's something that's intrinsic in you, something that you can't not do?
I think that's it. Anytime somebody says, "Oh, are you retired?" I say, "I've got no idea what that means. I've been working as an artist now since, for the last 50, 60 years, and that's not going to stop. At what point? Well, I'll be dead at some point. That'll be retirement."
As our time horizon gets smaller, does that have any impact on the way you spend your time and the way you appreciate the gift of what you've got to offer?
I've got a time frame in mind. My father lived to 99 and 3 days before 100. And genetically, the entire family is into their 90s. So I've given myself, another, 20 years to achieve something. But I don't know what I'm going to achieve. And that's every day I wake up and say, well, give myself a schedule today, something I can actually do in that course of time, and then we'll just see where it goes. Because honestly, I don't know where I'm going some days. I just start.
You've been a teacher and an educator as well. What for you is creativity?
I used to challenge the people around me all the time saying, are we teaching creativity? And they always said, oh, I've got them doing this, this and this. I said, that's not creativity. That's an exercise and you know the end result. It was never open-ended. And, oh, well, I've got to mark it, so I've got to have criteria. So you get these closed-off projects. That was never how it was supposed to be.
How did you address that?
Yeah, look, the dance productions, particularly the ones with my dance company, we worked 1 day a week. They all had other lives, so Sunday was the day. We would put in 6 hours. I'd come in the morning and I'd say, right, today we're going to work with this. For the most part, I said, look, I'm just going to sit here and watch what you're doing. When I think you've got something interesting, we'll film it. So many of those productions, we just started. You've got to have faith in your collaborators. What you can't do is say, well, I am superior. I'm making all the judgments. It was never that at all. We did a piece that ended up being a flamenco piece. Massively complex, but that was two 15-year-olds. They drove all of that. I was shaping the thing overall, but they were driving the rehearsals. They were there every Sunday to do this. That's an enormous commitment. 9 months of Sundays to get something to happen. They turned up every week and they took it seriously.
What does that say?
They wanted to be there. And the fact that these people came back year after year, even some of my set crews, gee. The list of the worst academic students in the school, the ones that were never dressed in uniform, forever at odds with teachers, forever in detention, those are my set crew. And you give them a focus and a task, and then you put someone in charge that they're never going to defy. And I had a series of brilliant female leaders. It wasn't a question of age, but, the respect that they garnered. And once we got to the theatre, I said, look, it's not my job anymore. You've got this mob backstage. You make sure they do what they're here to do. If it falls apart, it's your problem. I said, you've got to have faith in the people you put in charge.
Have you got a quote for me that is inspiring for you?
I always remember going back to a film I saw where whoever the woman was said, oh, life is not a rehearsal. That's as good as anything. If you don't do it, what's the point?
Ah, yes, some lovely cross references between Alan's creative processes and ours. Like the Sunday rehearsals where he says to his collaborators, I'm just going to sit here and watch what you do in response to my offer, and we'll video anything that looks interesting. Alan letting go of his need to be in control, allowing whimsy to be the content creator. And later on, logic becomes the organiser, the analyser. Also, that compulsion to create, how powerful that is in Alan, and how genuinely powerful a life force it is for creators in general. It's a very common thing to hear from artists. So, a big thanks to Alan for sharing his story today.
What are you working on?